Hello everyone, I'm Matthew Yu from Thermo Fisher Scientific ETO BI team, and thank you so much for using Power BI. Recently, our group received a lot of questions and requests on how to build a Power BI on-premises gateway. So I think it will be a great opportunity that I make a video to discuss with you guys on some tips, tricks, best practice on how to build a Power BI gateway and schedule your report to automate the whole process. So let's get started. All right, let's start with some basic concepts. So first is the scope and assumptions for this video. So the goal of this video is to provide you the demo, some best practice and tips on how to build a gateway from start until building a report. And the second part is, in this video, I assume you already have some basic understanding of Power BI report and Power BI gateway. If you are not familiar with those concepts, please feel free to go to Power BI official websites. There are a lot of great documentations and videos to teach you those basic concepts. And the third thing is, today is February 22nd, 2019. This is when I made this video. So of course, when you see this video, it might be a future date, and Microsoft and the Power BI team might change the user interface, and maybe some of the license and some other stuff. So maybe your version you see is not the same as today what my video shows. And the fourth thing is, I'm going to use some just general use cases. Maybe in your report, your database has some other security rules and firewall applied. But today I'm just going to use some of my basic on-premises data sources to show you. So the first thing for building a gateway is, do you need a gateway? So in data source, we have two types of data sources. The first is we call on-premises data source, and the second is cloud data source. So some examples of on-premises data sources is something like your SQL database, your Oracle database, and some cloud data source is more like your web and some OneDrive data sources. Of course, this might not be always true, because some web can be hosted on premises, and some SQL database can be a public. So in general, for most of business users, how do you identify what is your data source? This is a question to ask you here. Do you need a VPN to access your data sources? If the answer is yes, you do need a VPN to log into in order to see those data sources. Yes, it is most likely it is on-premises data source. If it's no, so you can see you don't need a VPN, you can use any public computer to access those data sources. It is likely that it is a cloud data source. Of course, the easiest way is to ask the admin of the data source, hey, is your data source on-premises and cloud? So why do I ask this question? The reason is because this decides if you need a gateway. So if in your report you have at least one on-premises data source, you will need to set up a gateway. If everything, remember this, everything in your report is cloud data source. So in this case, you don't need a gateway to schedule a refresh. And Power BI cloud service will use something called Direct Connect. And now you can close this video. Just joking. So yes, so basically at least one data source you will need to start to set up a gateway. So first check your data source to see if it's necessary. If it is not, you don't need to go through all those steps to set up gateway server. Okay, so let's get started to set up a gateway. There are 4 steps setting up a gateway. Starting from the beginning, first is set up a gateway server. This is an infrastructure that you will need that server is inside your company firewall. This is the first step. And the second step is to add the data source that into the gateway. So basically, the gateway has your security credential. It will be able to access your data source and grabs data delivered to the Power BI server. The third thing is verify your PBX file data source. This is not official, but I highly recommend you to do that. because it will save you a lot of trouble later. And the fourth thing is to connect and schedule your report. So depending on your situation, you might be able to skip some of the steps. So the first thing is you can ask yourself is, does your department already have a server set up that you can use immediately? If your answer is no, or I'm not sure, you will have to start from the very beginning. And if you know, okay, someone in my department has already done it, and we have a server that is we can use immediately. So next you can ask, hey, can you get the admin access of that server, or can you get the admin of that gateway? If the answer is yes, you will do this step by yourself by adding the data source into the gateway by yourself. And if the answer is no, they will not give you the admin access, but they will do this for you. That is better, right? Because now you can skip the second step. And what you need to do is to go and verify the PBX file data source and check and send them the connection details. After you have done everything, the last step is you will receive confirmation from them, and you will be able to connect and schedule. So depending on the situation, you might be able to skip some, but I will start from the beginning, and depending on your situation, you can skip and go to that step accordingly. All right, the first is set up a gateway. So the very first thing is you need to consult your local IT for the process to get a server access. So here is, don't forget to ask them to grant you the access of the remote server. So for our company, we have to go to Service Catalog, Technical Services, Cloud Services, ACS Service Request to file a request and get the access to the remote server. So it might change later, but depending on that, you can ask around on how to get the server access. So from Power BI official website, the recommended hardware specs for the gateway is 8 CPU and 16 gigabytes of RAM. So if your company is using AWS, so the one that I recommend is A1.2XL or C5.2XL. A1 is a very general purpose, but C5 is more compute optimized. So depending on your budget, you can use whatever one you want. This is recommended. Of course, it can be, you can use like more powerful or less powerful one. All depends on you. So after you get the access to the server, after you have done this step, you will be able to use the remote desktop connection from your PC, which I will show you very quick. So the last quick thing I want to discuss with you is, should you set up your own gateway server, or you can piggyback to other people's or other teams' server? So the answer depending on you. For me, the best practice I want to give you guys is you want to set up your own, because first you have the dedicated resource, and I see a lot of people, they share one gateway server. However, in the morning, especially at 7 a.m., everyone is refreshing their report, and because of this refresh is very, very slow, because a server can just do that much work at one time, right? So because of this, everyone's so slow and they have to split out. So basically, first is you have your dedicated resource for better performance. Plus, you can just log in the server, reboot it, or install new connectors. So whenever you want, you don't have to ask their admin to do that for you, because you might wait for like months or like days to get that actually done. So it will be better that you can get your own. Of course, the downside is there are some costs associated. So it will depend on you. My personal suggestion or the best practice is set up your own group gateway server. Okay, now let's have a quick demo on how to set up this gateway server. So let's assume I already filed the application and my IT department already approved my request and grant me the remote desktop connection. So I might receive a connection string like this. Or if you're using AWS, your connection string might be look like that. So how do you might ask, hey, how do I get to the remote desktop connection? If you're using a Windows PC, click the Start menu and type in remote. And you can see here, the best match, the first result I received is called remote desktop connection. Click that. Every Windows machine has this pre-installed, so you don't need to worry about. So in this case, I'm going to use my username to log in. You might receive different one. I'm going to click connect. Now it's building a secure connection. Okay, as you can see, this is my secure connection. It looks like a normal computer, right? For some of you might first seeing this. Okay, so I'm going to make a full screen for this secure connection. Now I logged into this remote desktop. The first thing I want to do is to search for Power BI Gateway download. Okay. And basically the first or second result is that one. And I click download gateway. And within a second, it's finished downloading. Now I'm going to start to install that. So I'm going to click run. Basically, the installing process is very easy, but make sure you can check with your local admin to see if there's no firewall issue or no security issue that block you from installing it. Okay, I'm going to just click next because I already know. Okay. Now it's just like downloading this software because make sure it's always the latest version. After it's downloading, I just keep clicking next. All right, because for my machine, I already have all those firewall restrictions removed, and it is, so now I can just install it. So just make sure it is doable. So thinking this is just like general warning, making sure this gateway server is always on, sure, because it is always on, it's a server. And I'm going to install, I'm going to accept, I'm going to install on my D drive. I'm going to click install. And I'm going to click yes. And just let's wait for it to finish. All right, now I'm back. So in this case, I skipped about 2 minutes. So you can see it's a very fast installing process. And it says email address uses gateway. So I'm just in this, for the demo purpose, I'm just going to use my personal one. Now it sends me in through the company network authentication. All right, it passed. And it asked me, do you want to register a new gateway or migrate existing? For the demo purpose, I'm going to register a new gateway. And it asked me for a name. So I'm going to put demo and 222, this is today's date. And recovery key. This is very important. I have to say this is very important because after this step, you will not be able to retrieve this from anywhere. Even the admin cannot give it back to you. So please remember this password you entered today. So of course, for the demonstrating purpose, I'm just going to use 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. But yours, I recommend to comply with the company password policy and remember this password because it's very important when you want to migrate and when you want to recover this gateway in the future. You will need this recovery password. I'm going to click configure. Now, this gateway server is connecting with Power BI service and will return back. Okay, now it says ready. The gateway demo 222 is online and ready to be used. And you might want to use some other programs there, but you can check Power BI official websites on how to configure those. But basically now it is done. I can click close. And in fact, if you're curious, this is actually running at the background of my server. If you can look for that, it is, okay, couldn't find it. Okay, it is here. So it's running as a background. Okay, so then let's go back to our, so now here you're basically done with your, with the server here. So you can click log out, disconnect to disconnect. Okay, let's go back to the PowerPoint. So again, during the setup, it is very important that you remember the recovery password and write it down somewhere and comply with the password policy. This is very important. And of course, and if you already know your data source needs some extra connectors be installed, you can install on the service side. And there are some popular examples like Access Database Engine if you are using XLS or Access files, and some Oracle connector, and of course some ODBC. The reason is data gateway, of course, they need the connector to be able to read that data from your data source. So if you don't install, basically this gateway cannot read the data and therefore cannot pass the data to Power BI server. So if you know your data source needs those connectors, you can install it before you shut down, before you disconnect from your server. And you can see the full list of, I will post this PowerPoint, and you can see the full list there. But of course, if you don't know, don't worry too much, because later you will receive some error message, and the system will guide you on which one you are missing, and just install those. Okay, so, and one last thing is, after this step, you are basically done with the server. You will just keep the server running, don't shut it down, and basically you don't need to log in again unless you want to, for example, reboot the server when you notice something's wrong or it's too slow. You will just reboot it, because usually reboot resolves 90% of the issue. So you want to reboot the server, or you want to go back and check the logs if you are troubleshooting on some gateway issues to see, oh, which data source taking a lot of CPU. And also, it is once in a while, you can come back and upgrade your data gateway into a new version. So if you go back and you go back to the data gateway, and I'm going to connect again. And you can search for on-premises data gateway. Okay, it is here. This is a Windows 8 server. And if there's a new version available on the data gateway, it will tell you to upgrade. But if not, you're using the latest version. Now it's February, but the latest version is December 2018, so I'm totally fine. Now I can disconnect. Or you want to install some new connectors. Basically, you receive some error message from this step, and you want to install some new connectors. So you can log in. Basically, after this, you don't need to deal with this very technical stuff, and you can forget about the server. Okay, congratulations. Our first step is done. And now let's go to the second step of adding a data source. So in this step, basically, it's very easy. Just adding the data source, give the data gateway your credential. So there are two things I want to remind you. So the first is, I'm going to show a little bit, is to check the user tabs to make sure you have grant access to your editors. So the first thing is you need to know you don't need to grant access to your readers, because the editors are the one that is used to data refresh. Readers just see the server result, and you don't need to grant access to your readers. And the default user will be only the admins. So you will have to do this for each data source. Let's say if I need to grant access to my coworker, William, so I have to go to each data source and grant William the access for that data source, or William can now use that to schedule refresh. The second part is a credential. So you can see here, this is a screenshot of the data gateway. So of course, so there are some questions regarding, do you want to use your personal account, or do you want to get a service account for your credential? So the best practice is to use a service account, because first you can see here, I can choose, should I use my personal account in this data gateway server, or to access my resource, or can I use a service account? So because, like for my case, my password will expire every 90 days. If I use my personal account after 90 days, I have to come back and change my password and give this data gateway a new credential. and it might cause my refresh to fail. And also, when you are doing this by your account, when the data gateway is refreshing the data, it is under your name. So basically, it will hold accountability for that action. So basically, it is best practice to use a service account, and people will be able to use that as a long term, because usually a service account password doesn't expire, and you can make sure this data gateway can get on forever. All right, let's go to the web interface and see how that is set up. Okay, in this step, I'm going to set up a demo SQL server as a data source. So now I'm at powerbi.com. I'm going to click sign in. After I sign in, on the top right, there's a little gear button called settings. I'm going to click this one, and there is one thing called manage gateways. I'm going to click that. So see on the left of this list, it shows me all the data gateways that I am the admins of. Okay, so today I set up this demo 222 as my demo gateway. So I'm going to use this to add a data source. So first is if you click here, it says online, you are good to go, which means yes, everything's good. And for those settings, you can check Microsoft website for more information. And you can set up here admins. Now, because I use my account to log into the data gateway server, so that is why my name shows here as the solo admins. Of course, you can add other people's name here so they will be able to work with you and also be the admin of this gateway. And I'm going to go back. So here, I'm going to add my first data source, which is a SQL server. So I'm going to hover my cursor at this demo 222. There is 3 dots and says open menu. I'm going to click here and click add data source. And data source name, I'm just going to put demo SQL. Okay, so there are a lot of data sources. If you click any of them, it will tell you what is the information that they need to be able to build this connection. So it's very simple, straightforward. So for my case, I'm going to use SQL. So okay, I found SQL Server. Okay, here I'm going to click SQL Server, and it says you need a server name and database. So I'm going to put in my server name and my database as a demo purpose. Okay, and for the authentication method, because I'm doing this demo, so I will just use my personal account. Of course, this is not the best practice, and I recommend you guys to get a service account to do this action. Okay. After all set up, you can check some advanced settings. I'm going to click add. And you see here, connection successful. Next step, go to users tab to above to add users of the data source. So I can click this users, and I can add all my other co-editors' email address here, so they will be able to use this demo SQL database to schedule the report. And again, you don't need to add your readers here, but if you want, it doesn't really matter. So this is, make sure if you want someone, if you're co-editing this report, make sure their name is also showed up under the user tab. Okay, now this data source is added, so I'm good to go. Okay, perfect. So we finished step 2. Now we're going to step 3 to verify what is in the PBX file and what is the data source to make sure the data can be scheduled. So to compare, so I'm going to open my PBX file, which I'm going to show you later. You will need to compare 2 things. So the first is check the online version, which is the data gateway version, to see if your data gateway has added that source. And then check your PBX file, which is here, to make sure that data source is matching the data source here. So see, I have 2 boxes there that is showing, okay, this is matching. So your goal is very simple, to make sure the online version, which is the right part, contains everything at all the on-premises resource from your PBX file. So basically, you need to make sure everything is every on-premises here is showing up, also has a matching here. So when you're comparing side to side, I'm going to show you one quick example. So first is you can ignore the cloud sources because you can see in my example, my first one is a cloud source, so I can ignore that. So that one doesn't need to match. The reason is they don't use a gateway. So that is why I said match every on-premises data sources and ignore the cloud. Okay, the second thing is, this is based on experience, but it's not guaranteed 100%, is sometimes when we're doing the matching, sometimes the capitalized you can ignore, which means if you're matching this is two-way matching, which is cloud versus your PBIX local version. So capitalized doesn't really matter sometimes because the system will ignore the capitalization. And the second is domain name. If you're using on-premises, basically it has a default domain, and if I use this version, basically it sometimes system can auto mapping to the full version. And this is the third thing is very interesting. It's a folder type. So what we found out is sometimes it is one-way matching. So if on the data gateway, I set up the parent folder, and basically I found the system can almost always find all the child folders plus everything, every file in the child folder. So this is a folder to child folder matching or folder to child file matching. So if you don't understand what I'm saying here, it's totally fine because later your experience will answer all those questions. So basically my best practice, achieve 100% match. So basically if that says capitalized USPGH, you also use capitalized USPGH. Basically you want to 100% match in case there are sometimes the system is being stupid and it cannot recognize. So let's get into one example of matching. Okay, here I open the demo PBX file. So of course this is not very beautiful. So it's for demoing purpose. So what I want to show you is how to verify the PBX file to matching the online version. So what you need to do is very easy. See this edit queries, and I'm going to click this little triangle here. And the second option is called data source settings. I open here, this one will show me all the data sources I have. And even though you can see on the right side, on the fields, I have a lot of different data sources. Maybe I duplicated them, or maybe I was doing some merging. But on here, it gives you the full list of every data source I have. And most interestingly is, if you hover your cursor at the little icon, it will show you what is the data source type for this report. And you can see this is a web data source, and this is SQL. So one quick question here. What is the online, or what is the cloud data source, and which is on-premises? So usually for us, web data source is a cloud data source because it says, you can see sharepoint.com. So it is a cloud data source. So this one, basically, I can ignore because I don't need to match that. But here, if I hold my cursor, it is SQL. And this is, you can read from this address. It looks like an internal website, and you can verify this by working from home. And you can see you will not be able to access this folder. So this is on-premises also. Okay, so now my task is for this demo, I want to schedule refresh for this file. Okay, now I need to match. So now I have two on-premises sources that I need to match. One is SQL, one is folder. I'm going to open my online version and double check everything is added. So here, I have one SQL database, which I already set up. Of course, I'm using the capitalized, but the system will be able to identify. So the second thing is, this one is I didn't set up. So I need to add that. So before I show that, let me show you if I don't add it, if I don't do the matching, what will happen. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to click this, my workspace. I'm going to upload this to my workspace as for the demo purpose. So after it's finished, I'm going to open in my workspace and I scroll down to dataset and my report name is called demo. I hover my cursor, click open menu and click schedule refresh. So I want to use my data gateway 222 to refresh my report. And you can see here, demo 222, it says not configured correctly. So what happened? You can see here, because SQL Server is matching, but my folder is not matching, and it requires me to add into gateway. So basically, if you don't do the matching, this is basically what you will receive. It will say no configured correctly. And ignore this web data source for now, and we're going to add this folder data source. So to add this, it's very easy. So because I'm the admin, I can always go back to the manage gateways. And I open my demo 222. And first, let me just copy my folder name. I'm going to click change source. I'm going to copy this folder. This will definitely ensure it is 100% matching. So I'm going to go to data 222. So as you already know, this is demo folder. And of course, you can change this name anytime. So this is the folder type. I'm going to select folder. And the full path, just a paste. And username, password, again, I'm not using the best practice. So just for this demo purpose, I'm going to use my personal password. Okay, it says connection successful. Now it is 100% match because under my demo 222, I have my demo SQL and demo folder. And in my edit queries, I have all my on-premises folder and SQL. So it is 100% matching, two ways. Okay, now let's go back to the report, see what will happen. I go to my workspace and my demo report. I click schedule refresh, and I click my gateway connection. See here, now it is running green. I'm going to click this one to click apply button. Now I'm going to use this to do my refresh. Now everything is working, not yet. So go here. This is called data source credentials. So you can see here, for the first two, it's already the first one is my folder, the second one is my SQL. Admin has already granted the access. Credentials are not required because it is already stored in the data gateway. So I don't need to re-enter this anymore. The one thing is, notice there's a little cross here as a web data source. This is a cloud data source we're mentioning about. And you can use this edit credential button to log in. So for ours, because this is a OneDrive data source, I'm going to use OSAN2 and click sign in button. So again, I'm using my personal account, which is not very professional, but it's for this demo purpose. I'm just going to use that. Okay, now it says data source updated. And you can see the little cross here is gone. So even though it shows added credentials here, as long as there's no cross, they're saying that password is wrong, you will be good to go. I know it's intimidating than to think that's added credential, but actually you're good. So now I can schedule my refresh to be, let's say, every day at 11 a.m. And that's basically it. And how to test. So I can just go back to my left side under data sets. I go to my demo and I can click refresh now button. It says preparing to refresh, and after 5 minutes, and you can go up. There is one thing called refresh history here at the top of your schedule refresh. Click here and it says on demand. Okay, it's already completed very quickly. If it says completed, great, you are good to go. That's everything. So this is a quick way to test, which is go down and find your data source, right click or open the menu, click refresh now, do a very quick testing. So you can see now it says in progress. But within, because I'm using a very small file, so within like, okay, 2 minutes or maybe 1 minute, it says completed. So you can basically, now you are guaranteed that the gateway connection is working. So now we're all set up here. And let's go back to see some final tips. All right, for the matching, we have some final tips that is for you. So the first thing is, if you find like they don't match, so either change your cloud side to basically in the data gateway, switch that data source, or go to PBX side to change the data source until it is matched. So the second thing is best practice, never have some data source looks like this. C drive. This C drive here is very bad. You can see on this screen here, I'm using C drive users and my OneDrive. So why it is bad? Basically, someone asks you, hey, where you live? And you say, I live at my home. So no one knows. The point is, no one knows what a C drive is. The gateway never understands what is C drive, because for C drive, or like you're using a Z drive for your shared drive, it is some shortcut. So no one knows what is a C drive is. So basically, if you already done this, and what you can do is you can use the change data source button, which is located here, and use this button to change your data source into maybe an online source or maybe a full path. Never use any C drive and Z drive. And the best practice is, usually you can see my file name is at February 2019 revenue. But the best practice, if you are using file data source, it's highly recommended. You can put in either a shared drive location, which is on premises, a shared folder, or you can put in the SharePoint OneDrive, which is a cloud data source, for Power BI to reach that resource and refresh. And you want basically keep the name identical. Basically, it's not saying February 2019 revenue. Basically, you can say my revenue or my department revenue. So basically, it will be the same file, and you can maintain this refresh for a long time and just let the system do it, and you can just sit there. So this is some best practice. And the last step is the setup this one. So we already covered. So let's just go through this very quick. So for sure, so you can go to this powerbi.com and your workspace and datasets. Right click that and schedule refresh. You will see this screen. And if your step 3 is done correctly, you will see it showing green running on your data gateway. And if not, you will see something like this. It will tell you which data source is not matching. You can see here, my in this ETO gateway, my 3 oracles, they are not matching at all. So that's why it is returning not configured correctly. So this is what we'll receive if you didn't do the step 3 correctly. And again, in cloud sources, you can enter this credentials under data source credential sections. And the last is use refresh now to test. And basically that is all the steps from beginning to the start. And we just use refresh now to verify it's working. So one quick question and answer is, sometimes when you're doing the refresh or I'm setting up, I run into some errors. So this is one quick screenshot. So what should I do? So there are a couple of things that you can do. So first is try to read these error messages to see if that is a simple fix you can do. For example, sometimes I see people's password expired. Like me, in my demo session, I was using my personal account. After 90 days, my password got changed, and they will receive some error messages because Credential didn't work, right? But it is a simple fix. I can just go to the same setup page and change my password. So first is try to see, read the error messages, see if that's a very simple fix. If yes, you're all good to go. And the second thing is sometimes your data source or something changed. So You can verify this by going to your original PBIX local file and click the refresh button and something like this, and click the refresh button to see if this can go through, because this will give you more detail if there's something failed. It will give you more detailed information on what is failing, and you will be able to identify. This will help you identify. See, I just succeeded, but sometimes I will run into some errors. It will give me maybe my relationship is wrong, which is 50% chance that will happen to me a lot of times. And you will be able to identify through your PBIX local file. And also verify your original data source is not changed. You can see here in this error message, it says user table something's wrong. So it says data format error. So for me, I can already guess it is some data formatting issue. For example, there's one column that in my user table, it was all number, but then a text message showed up and the refresh messed up. So I can go back to check my data, or either change the data to a text column, or go to my data source to remove that issued row. So this is one thing you could do. And sometimes it gives you internal server error or unspecified error, so and didn't give you much information. That is very annoying to me also sometimes as well. So in this case, you can contact Microsoft, and you can see there is an activity ID column here and request ID. So you can go contact Microsoft to give them the activity ID, so they will be able to pull up more information from the backend and tell you what is the detail that goes wrong. And you might ask how to contact Microsoft. It's very easy. So go to support.powerbi.com, and you can see here, you can just go down, and there's one thing called create support ticket. But first, you need to become a pro user to get free support. But if you don't, you can just try to ask your IT to basically how to do one. But I'm going to click guided learning. Okay, so on this page, I can just type in anything like gateway issue, and you can search any troubleshooting or any article that is helpful to you. If not, you can see there's one button called Can't Find a Solution. You can click Continue to Support Ticket, and this is a support connect page. You can bookmark this page also, and it asks you to put your contact information, and someone will email you or call you for sure. And you can describe your issue and attach a file. So I highly recommend you to try that. And I personally use it all the time because Microsoft really is putting a lot of effort into Power BI, and there will be a person that will call me and help me resolve this issue. So one last thing that I want to show you is in the PowerPoint, I also attached some of the documents that you can read. And of course, they're all from documentation.powerbi.com. And there's one important page, which is the next page, that I also copied from Microsoft, which is the best practice of how to use the Power BI Gateway. So that's pretty much it. So there's a bonus content. Okay, so yeah, that's pretty much it. I hope this video is helpful to you. And if you have any questions or comments or concerns, please feel free to email us or put in the comment section. And thank you. Have a nice day.